SpaceX IPO, the initial public offering of SpaceX, yet another company of Elon Musk. It's highly anticipated and it is said to be the largest IPO in US history, potentially even worldwide, with an overall valuation of SpaceX of $1.5 trillion. So that's a big number. And if I just go quickly to our dashboard here and look at the market cap, I wonder which companies are even valued this high. Yeah, Nvidia and Google and Apple. But from an IPO standpoint, of course, these companies, when they IPO'd, they didn't have this kind of market cap. So SpaceX will be really all the way up there. I guess listed, if that happens the way it is, all the way just below Broadcom, which is amazing. So largest anticipated IPO, or if this happens the way it is, largest IPO in US history with a $1.5 trillion valuation. And it is said, I believe the final figures are not announced yet, but it is said that at the IPO, the proceed that will be offered will be worth $75 billion. This many shares will be made publicly available in that IPO. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what SpaceX actually does. Now, SpaceX is, of course, known. It's mostly known, I believe, for their very spectacular rocket launches. I'm sure most of you have seen footage on YouTube or on TV about these crazy big rockets, Starship being launched into space, which currently is an experimental rocket, but also all the rockets that bring satellites into the orbit, which bring supplies to the International Space Stations, all kinds of rockets being built in a smart way by SpaceX. That's one of the key pillars of the company. But there's more. SpaceX, in fact, the only currently profitable part of this business is, in fact, Starlink, a communications technology allowing fast internet, literally from anywhere in the world. And there's a wide range adoption of Starlink happening already. Many airlines, for example, are now refurbishing their airplanes to use Starlink technology to provide internet to their passengers. That's something I've been using. I haven't been used yet, but I use internet on the airplane all the time. In fact, it's a great time to go through all customer service, to write emails, to catch up on work. If you have nothing else to do but just sit in an airplane for like 8 hours, if you travel to Europe or someplace else, I use it all the time. I think Starlink will play a major role in internet on airplanes and many other ways as well. And SpaceX also has its own AI part of the company. It's called xAI. Of these three pillars in the company, currently Starlink is the only profitable one, but of course there's huge upside potentials to all the other ones as well. All right, now back to the IPO part. So the final figures with the pricing will be announced on Thursday, June 11. The expected price is $135. We'll see if that actually happens at that price point. But on Thursday, June 11, we should know the exact figures for the pricing. Like how many shares will be released to the public and what will be the IPO price. The actual first trading day, the first public trading day, will then be the Thursday, June 12th, where SpaceX stock will be listed on the NASDAQ and can be traded through the NASDAQ. So if you want to get into it, June 12th would be the first day you can do it with your brokerage. All right, ticker symbol for SpaceX will be SPCX. Not very surprising. SpaceX makes sense. And of course, now the real question is, should you buy SpaceX? Should I consider investing into SpaceX? Well, let me back up a little bit, because it's not an easy question to answer, especially for me, because SpaceX is an IPO. There is no chart data available. The first piece of chart data will be made available this Friday, and that's only going to be one daily bar if you look at the daily time frame. This also means we cannot do any of the normal technical analysis that we usually do. Our chart indicators cannot be applied. There's simply too little data available. And market structure and price structure, and from a technical analysis point of view, cannot be evaluated. That makes it difficult for me. I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm a chart technician. I believe in technical analysis. I cannot use technical analysis for SpaceX. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. But of course, let me try to elaborate a bit more. Should I buy SpaceX when they're offered? Because I think there's some other things we can consider. All right, first off, a couple of things that you may not be aware of. When SpaceX will be publicly traded, there's a big chance it will be included in the NASDAQ 100 and other indices fairly early on. Perhaps not right away, but fairly early on. Basically forcing all the big ETFs that track these big indexes to buy SpaceX proportionally. And the weight of SpaceX will be quite substantial as well. This wasn't possible in the past, so this is like early inclusion into a major index. There might be an exception coming for SpaceX. SpaceX is also likely to be included in the Magnificent 7 and then will be Magnificent 8. Of course, that's not an official index, but still is something that people track a lot. So Mag 7 may become Mag 8. All right. Now, back to our key question. Should I invest into SpaceX when they come out? And in order to answer this question, let's examine some other IPOs that happened in the past. What does typically happen to other IPOs when they came out? And thanks to Aubrey, I know Aubrey is in the room right now, he has sent me by email a couple of days ago a nice table like this one here, listing a couple of key IPOs like Facebook, Alibaba, Shopify, Block, Palantir, Datadog, and so forth. And he listed what the stock has done 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months after the IPO. That's kind of interesting because if you just glance over this picture here, you can see that for many of them, they have red numbers in here, meaning they drew down. They lost some, they went below their IPO price basically in the first week, first month, in the first 6 months, but also 12 months. The majority, in fact, of the 12 months were actually red. And this is not uncommon behavior of IPOs. Why? Because even though there's big potential in that company, investors who invested much earlier than the IPO, seed investors, angel investors, through various funding rounds, they of course want to book some profits. They want to get some of their money back, basically meaning to sell the stock back to the market, which may cause a drop of stock price. And of course, it also all depends on what is the pricing of SpaceX or of that IPO, of that company. What's the price point established? Is it a fair price point? Is it perhaps too high, too low? This may also cause a correction afterwards in the markets. So there was something interesting to see. And this was something that Aubrey, I think, found from a different trader, Keith Lerner. And it's something I wanted to share with you. But then I thought, hey, perhaps we can even dig down a bit deeper into this, or what to expect after an IPO. So I took this as a starting point. I kept all the different companies here. And then I tried to evaluate. In fact, what I did, I'm going to go back to my dashboard here in just a second. What I did, I created a watch list. This one here, IPOs, with exactly all these companies in our liquidity view dashboard, just to see what has happened since the IPO, just to glance at it. For example, here for Meta, you can see it here. I'm just going to make it all nice and small here and take the indicators off the chart. 1 second. Give me a quick second here. We can see for Meta, for Facebook, when it came out in 2012, you can see it's a bit hard to see because it's now, of course, so hyped up. But initially, the next couple of months, it actually went down a little bit. And then the big move continued or started. And I was wondering, how far typically is the stock price after an IPO oftentimes go down after the initial price? What's a typical drawdown? And how long does it take? So I went to work and I decided to do an analysis on this aspect. And one thing I was able to do using our dashboard, in fact, and some Excel magic, is I was able to determine what was actually the max drawdown with using the IPO price for each of these IPOs. So for example, here, if you look at Facebook, where do we have it? Where do we have Facebook? Meta. There. Meta here, if you go to the right, drawdown 58%. Who would have thought? Yeah, you may remember this. Facebook actually drew down 58%. And then this amazing run of Facebook started. Look at the other companies here. Spotify, 58% down. Snowflake, 56% down. Palantir even went 40% down after the IPO. What I also found interesting is that look how many days it sometimes took. Days to max drawdown to this number here. So for Facebook, for example, to reach their low point after the IPO price, it was 109 trading days. That's like 3-4 months. And then the amazing run continued. And the only stock here, look at this, which didn't have any drawdown, where basically the IPO price was the lowest price, and then it only went further upwards, is this one up here. It's Shopify. 0 drawdown. The IPO price was also the lowest price of that stock. And then they only went higher and higher afterwards. But that's the exception. Most stocks will experience a drawdown. And I found this interesting. Because perhaps this is something you may want to wait for before investing into SpaceX. Because in almost every case, there's just one exception, there was a drawdown below the initial price. In almost every case. So jumping in right away into SpaceX, perhaps not the best idea. But of course, that's all up to you. I'm just giving you these statistics. But I found this interesting to see. But of course, I don't want to be completely negative about this. Let's see about where these stocks are right now after the IPO. So I create another table, this one here, where you can see, hey, how much return did these stocks give us if we would sell it right now? Let's say we would have bought it at the IPO and sell it right now. What would be the return? Of course, Shopify here, staggering 6,400%. Crazy. What a move up. Meta, 1,276%. Palantir, 1,200%. MongoDB, with almost 1,000%. You can see these numbers are huge. Really big numbers. So there's a huge upside potential in the long run. That may take a long time because, the IPOs, you can list it, the dates are here. 2015 Shopify. That's more than 10 years ago. Facebook, 15 years ago almost. Cloudflare, 7 years ago. So you may need to wait this out to see these returns. So despite these big drawdowns, 58%, 49%, big returns are possible, of course, if you are willing to wait it out. And of course, if you look at the lower end here, there are some IPOs which didn't give us any returns. But average, at least for these ones here, they're smaller than what the potential gains might be. Something to consider. So most IPOs have generated huge returns. So what should we take away from this? Well, most IPOs trade now much, much higher than the initial offering. Not all of them, of course, but most of them, they are much, much higher. And if you were to ask yourself the question, should I trade SpaceX or should I buy SpaceX? Here would be my outlook on it. But of course, that's my personal opinion. You do whatever you want. But my personal opinion is the following. I'd say possibly. However, you may want to wait for the initial post-IPO drawdown. So the initial drawdown to happen, which is likely to happen. Only one of these IPOs actually didn't have any drawdown. So it's likely to see this drawdown, wait for it, and then potentially consider a long entry. That's at least is my take on how you should handle the SpaceX IPO.